Okay, so welcome everyone and welcome to this Evolve Voices podcast EMEA chapter. What is Evolve? What is Evolve Commerce Club? So Evolve Commerce Club is an exclusive community of, high international caliber people from different industries, different markets, different regions. Today, the club is spanning more than 38 countries. And since the club emphasizes a lot, on meaningful opportunities and connections, we decided to launch this podcast, this Evolve podcast. And so whereby every chapter lead will be hosting high caliber people, talking with them about discussing their expertise, the region they work in, the challenges there, the perspective, and, sharing knowledge to the community and beyond. I am Mayssa Nasr. I am a marketing and growth consultant and a fractional CMO, and I am more than thrilled to be the host for, this Europe, Middle East, and Africa chapter. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Ghassan Nawfal. Ghassan, who is a sales guru with over 20 years of experience in sales. Ghassan is today the Senior VP of Global Sales at GrubTech. GrubTech, which is a unified commerce software that streamlines the digital operation for all, the F&B and the restaurants. Ghassan is today based in Dubai in the UAE. Welcome, Ghassan, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
First of all, I am humbled, and I don't know if the word guru is the right word. I just like selling, but thank you. I'm honored to be on this podcast, and looking forward to seeing how we can help others around the world in sharing knowledge.
Amazing. So, Ghassan, first thing first, what is sales for you? If you are to define sales, what is it?
This wasn't part of the list of questions you told me you would ask. Ouch, that's a hard one. Look, I've been in sales for a very long time, and I think it really started to dawn on me what sales is probably 10, 15 years ago, where I started to realize that, coming from an Arab family or from the Arab community, there's a lot of negative connotation about being in sales. So it's not really a popular profession that people get into. You don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to be a sales guy. You wake up, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a politician. And when people think of sales, they think of it in a negative way. The typical used car salesman approach, someone trying to sell you something that you don't want, someone trying to force you to buy something that you don't need. Whatever a salesperson tells you doesn't really stand true because they try to hide all the little bits and things about the items. But about 10, 15 years ago, I started to realize that today, sales is probably the hardest job in the world. And I'll give you an example. And I'm spinning on this a little bit just because I want to make it clear when I explain what sales is to me. So today, if you actually go to university and then you decide to become a doctor, you take whatever MCAT test you want to take and you go through the whole process and you become a doctor. And then you do a specialization, you become a neurosurgeon, right? Now, for you to do that, you're going to be doing something so specific, but your accuracy of completion or your accuracy at this job is usually 90% plus. You wouldn't go to a doctor that has, 60% surgery success rate, right? And because the anatomy doesn't change and because things are constant, you're more likely than not to have a 99, if not 90% success. If you become a pilot, you don't want to be with a pilot that, crashes, right? So, and the more that you're able to give examples of these things, you start to realize that these jobs are not difficult because the success factor to these jobs is very, very high. And if you're doing something and always succeeding in it, so obviously the level of difficulty is not there. It might be challenging in the beginning for the learning curve to take place, but once you've gotten it, you're constantly going to be performing at that level. So starting with that, now let's look at sales. You have people in sales that have been there for 20, 30, 40 years. And not a single salesperson that you meet, whether, quote unquote guru or whatever, has anywhere close to a 50% chance of closing every deal he talks to. And I would put money that their success factor or their closing ratio, as we use in our terminology, is probably less than 30%. And you ask yourself why. And the real reason, again, the reason I'm spinning on this is it's a very difficult job. It's the most difficult job in the world because you have one and only one thing that you can control, which is your ability to present explain, digest, and show a particular product or service from your eyes. And every other factor, whether it's competition, the intelligence of the guy that you're talking to, market condition. He woke up, his wife and him had a massive fight, and he's not in a good mood, not very receptive. So all these infinite variables make that job unpredictable. And so, to go back to your question, what is sales for me? Sales is not an art, despite what people think. They say this guy has the gift of the gob.
Yeah.
Selling sand to the Arabs or ice to the Eskimos, or socks to someone with no feet. It's just not an art to me, and it's not a science. It's not a 1 + 1 = 2, because there isn't a way to actually guarantee the outcome of something by doing something over and over again. So over the years, I've kind of gotten to the point where, for me, sales is discipline.
Nice.
It's a discipline that you have to adopt, and you have to work on, and you have to slowly but surely modify and adjust based on the conditions of these infinite variables that you're being dealt with. So I'll give you an example. Today, in a B2B SaaS industry that I'm in, so we're selling this very, very sophisticated software integration API technology to restaurants.
Yes.
If the restaurant has that already, and I'm going up against a competitor, well, I need to know everything about my competitor to be able to showcase that my product is either more advanced in certain features, advantages, and benefits, or there's no point in going into that battle. At the same time, though, I have to figure out what is the cost of replacing that product with my product, because there's a cost of replacement, not just the cost of the product. And then I have to go even deeper and understand, is there anything even wrong with the setup that they have for them to make that change? And then I have to dig deeper and understand, well, is that change actually worth the cost of change? And then I have to dig deeper and say, well, what's the relationship between Mayssa and the person that she bought the software with? Maybe it's her cousin, and Mayssa's not going to turn around and tell her cousin, I don't want to use your product anymore. I'm going to use Gus's product. There's a relationship there. So all these factors are variables, where today doctors don't have that, pilots don't have that, engineers don't have that. And so today in our world, and especially in markets that are mature, like the European market, it's more difficult to sell in a specific sector sometimes, because it's just too mature for a new product. And then if there is a new product being launched, there isn't that discipline that is structured enough to help you sell into that space or that industry or that market. And vice versa, in a very emerging market, maybe too much discipline is also a barrier or a factor that prevents you from being able to sell. So, and I apologize, it's a long-winded answer, but today for me, sales is nothing but a discipline that some of us decide to take on as a career.
Nice, very nice. Thank you for this meaningful introduction. So actually, well, you're saying that you took it, as a career. So what actually sparked your interest, into the field of sales? How did you start?
I think it happens with most people in sales that I've actually met and hired and interviewed. And I always ask the same question, like, how did you get into sales? There's usually one of two answers. Either someone in the family, immediate or indirect family, is in sales. So they've grown up seeing that constant focus on convincing someone or influencing someone about making a decision left, right, or center. And then there's people that stumble into it like me. I graduated with a master's in econometrics, which is the study of data. I worked for Statistics Canada. I hated my job. And then one day I decided that wasn't going to be me. I'm not going to sit behind a computer, just, calculating and, running regressions and models. I just got an opportunity because I was living in Montreal at the time and I didn't speak French well enough to be able to get a real job. I got a sales job over the phone. And, again, it was me not wanting to give up on this opportunity, because I don't like doing something or committing to doing something and not doing it. I kept on doing it till about 3 or 4 months in, it kind of clicked and said, wow, I'm not actually as bad as I thought in doing this. And here I am 20 years later.
Amazing. So let's go for you, earlier on your career. So if you have to choose like some, key challenges that you face, right? Be it, at Montreal, in this first job or any other jobs that you did, in the first like 3-5 years at the beginning of your career. And how did you really overcome them? Especially that, as you said, 30, maximum 50% of chance, just to have a signature of any contracts, just seal a deal. So if you can just give us some example of some challenges and how did you overcome them?
So like any job, there's a number of challenges, but I think in sales, it's being able to find your voice. And what I mean by find your voice is that today we're defined by the words that come out of our mouth, by the tone that we use, and by the sound that we command. So when people talk to you, you say, wow, this guy has an eloquent voice. And this guy's tone, is so, firm, is a very firm tone of voice. And this guy's voice is very squeaky or very salesy. So very quickly in the first 5 to 10 minutes of talking to someone, they're evaluating you based on your voice, your tone, and your sound. And so in sales, it's very hard in the beginning for someone to find that combination that determines who they are as a salesperson, because at the end of the day, when you're talking, because again, salespeople have that amazing tool called their mouth. When you start talking, those are the 3 elements that people don't realize are very, very important. And so once you're able to hone in on what your tone is and what your sound is and what your voice is, and that combination, that is, to me, the hardest thing in sales. Now, the second most difficult thing in sales that I've learned is, well, actually 2. It's kind of connected. Sales is a numbers game. So the more activity you put in, the more potential results that you have. But that is also part and parcel connected to the acceptance of rejection. And rejection meaning not someone wanting to buy from you, but not someone accepting what you are offering, or not understanding what you're offering, or not giving you the time to even explain what you're offering. You can get rejected in many different ways. So not being able to accept rejection is usually based on the inability to accept that the biggest or one of the most difficult parts of sales, it's a numbers game. You just have to go through the numbers. If you call 10 people, 9 people are going to reject you, but 1 person is going to buy. But if you stop at that 10, then you're not satisfied and you don't ever grow that thick skin to accept that rejection is normal. But if then you call 20 people or 100 people or 1,000 people or 2,000 people, and then all of a sudden you've gotten rejected so many times that it doesn't matter anymore, because you know that for every 10 you talk to, you're going to actually end up winning 1. People don't give themselves that chance. So that was a big, big, big challenge for me. I wasn't used to rejection. I wasn't used to not being able to convey my thoughts and my ideas or my intention and have someone accept them.
How do you do to start accepting these stuff? So, I mean, is it a learning process? How do you usually go around that?
When you get rejected, I think a lot of us take it personal. And because rejection is something that we are not really taught, right? We're kind of growing up throughout our whole life being told that we have to be accepted, to accept others, and whether they're, short or tall, fat or thin, green or blue, whatever religion they're, accept, tolerate. And that mindset of constantly being accepted is the complete opposite of what sales is all about, because it's not about acceptance. Acceptance doesn't really happen in sales, but on a very, very low level. So here you are mentally, for the past 20 years, you've been told that you need to be accepted and your ideas matter and all these things, people should tolerate and listen to you. And then all of a sudden you pick up the phone and you call someone and says, Hi, good morning. This is Gus calling you from GrubTech. I'm not interested. And reality hits you in the face. You're like, did I just get rejected? You know? And so imagine that times 10 in a row and not even having the experience. So I have to get the experience to reduce the number of rejections. But for me to reduce the number of rejections, I have to have the experience. So like, where does it start? And the battle begins. So again, going back to when I said as an earlier statement, sales is the most difficult job in the world, like hands down. And actually, quite honestly, it's a job that everybody does. I mean, you sold me on being on this podcast, you know? You
Yeah.
told me something that got me thinking that, maybe this is something of value to me or to someone else. I convince my wife every day on many things. And I try to use my sales skills to convince my wife she's actually a better salesperson than I am. But the idea, we're constantly, your doctor tries to sell you on something, your mother tries to sell you on something, your kids are the best salespeople in the world. They sell you on, why they need to have this and why they need to have that and why they need to stay up 10 more minutes and I love you, mommy. And all of a sudden, emotionally, you buy in. They're great manipulators. So yeah, so accepting rejection is not something that we're taught. So we just have a hard time accepting how to deal with it. But the only advice I tell people when it comes to rejection is don't take it personal. If you keep on taking it personal, then you'll never, ever get into this profession because it's going to be a barrier for you accepting the fact that not everybody's going to buy from you. Don't take it personal. The guy had a bad day. He doesn't want to listen. Call him in 5 days. He won't remember you, And so having that mentality, I think, again, because it's not taught, we're not brought up, we're not exposed to it enough. It's very hard to pick up and always stays as a thorse, like I don't want to say a sore thumb, but like it always reminds me that was why I hated being rejected. I hate it.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Wow. Very meaningful insights. Nice. So, okay. So you're talking about rejection. We talked about the percentage of, selling something like 30 or maximum 50%. So in that sense, and you talked about doing a lot of research, right? Before going to any sales meeting. So in that sense, how much is personalization important in sales? So do you need to personalize every single call, every single meeting you do in sales? How important is that? Or you can, just start with a general thing and then start, after it, have a more, deep insights into the person or the company?
There's two schools of thought. And honestly, I haven't really made up my mind on where I sit in these schools of thought. Some people are very pro personalization of the approach, whereby you do enough research. And when you reach out to your prospect, you have enough information about their organization, their structure. You've done some due diligence of understanding who the decision makers are or influencers are. You understand if, like us, we're selling a SaaS, you understand what kind of technology they use, et cetera, et cetera. And some people go down the road even more to get into the more relevant day-to-day insights. So if the company had made an announcement about opening up new stores or firing people or whatever, and then some people go into LinkedIn and say, find out if we have the same university or the same person in contact. And to a certain extent, that is creepy. And I tell myself, if I have to do all that, what is that really telling my prospect? If I look at it that way, I feel like if someone did that to me, that means I'm probably very unique and there's not that many of me. And so these guys don't have a large addressable market. And so they have to be very specific about who they reach out to and who they talk to. And I feel more empowered. So I become more difficult to sell to because I feel like they did way too much research on me. And I'm like, why would you need to know all this? And if you know all this, like, really, do you have to spend all that time just to sell me on something? Like, I'm one of a billion people that could potentially buy. So that kind of turns me off in one sense. But then the other side is as well, like, you can't just pick up the phone and call any random person or reach out to a random person and do that. And there is a nice flow in what could potentially happen in just reaching out to someone random and just have a phone number. But the likelihood of that is also becoming very challenging because it's a very competitive market. So if I call you up and say, hey, can I speak to the president of GrubTech? And you're like,
Who are you?
who are you?
Mm.
It's different
Well,
than someone saying, hey, good morning. Can I speak to Mo? Is he available? And you're like, which Mo? Like, the CEO, is he there? So there's a level of comfort as well. But if I had to make a choice, honestly, I say, and I always tell my sales team, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple. Find out the simple things that you need to know. Identify the 3 or 4 things that would really require you to know before making this call. Who you calling, obviously, try. What are they using? Some recent info about them, some bit of insider information that you'll be able to pick up, and enough information about an alternative person to talk to in the case that they're not there. And then just call. And
nice.
again, having too much time spending on personalizing the approach. Good morning, Mayssa. I saw that we went to university together in Montreal. I graduated in 86. You graduated 87. I think it'd be great for us to connect. And I'm like, tell us, enough. Stop being trying to make me feel so special. Get to the point, So again,
All right.
20 years taught me, keep it simple, stupid.
Okay. And so going back to the markets, to the region, what differences are there in terms of cultures when you want to sell, to clients in terms of UAE, GCC, and Europe?
First of all, there are massive differences. We'll start off, we'll park it in 3 different segments. One, cultural, one, market dynamics, okay, and one, product market fit.
Nice. Okay.
And again, this is another question you didn't prepare me for. So culturally, it's different, right? So in the Middle East, if you call someone, highly unlikely someone's going to hang up the phone in your face. It's rude. It's culturally unacceptable, right? There's a nice way to hang up the phone. There's a nice way to tell someone you're not interested without saying no. There's a certain level of respect whereby it reflects negatively on the person that is saying no, to say it in an abrupt, unprofessional manner. Not to say what happens in Europe is not professional, because their definition of professionalism is you not wasting my time. I don't need this right now. I'm going to cut the conversation short. It's not personal. It's business, done and dusted. So in the Middle East in general, you have very, very, very rarely do you have someone hang up the phone. That's number one. Number two, culturally in the Middle East, it's much, much, much more difficult for you to say no to someone. There's that typical, inshallah.
Inshallah. Wow.
Inshallah is like, I don't
Hopefully.
want to hurt you and say that it might not happen, but, I'll leave it to God. God will decide. Well, you know what? God decides 2 things in my books. He decides who lives and who dies. Everything else we have a brain to think about. But over here, culturally, doesn't give you that comfort. So they don't like to say no to people. So you'll be dragged on for like 5, 6, 7 times just because someone's not going to tell you no. So culturally, that doesn't work.
But this, just posing here, so when they say that, it could be a yes after it, or usually it's a no because they would say yes rather than inshallah.
They'll say yes, 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 yes.
Inshallah. No.
So that's
Okay.
what inshallah means technically.
Yeah.
Yes. No. But then the third part of the cultural thing as well is culturally here, there is a tendency for us to immediately, almost blindly, accept something if it's coming from the West. Right?
Interesting.
New technology coming out. Oh, it's in the US. Boom, must be great. Coming out from Europe, must be amazing. And if something's coming out here from like Bahrain, they're like, nah, not. So it's that what we call here, it's the blonde hair, blue eye routine. If someone Western is to propose or share, it's almost, they're above all. So culturally, they like to be presented to and talked to by a Western voice, a Western individual, a Western idea. And so culturally, that's completely different than if we're Europe. So Europe, if we look at that, culturally, it's okay for them to hang up in your face because it's not personal, it's business. That's number one. Number two, culturally, it's not acceptable for someone to keep on saying yes, 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 no. or here it's accepted. And last but not least, I mean, they're not at all going to take your product just because, you're blue-eyed and blonde, or if you have, I don't know, you're walking around with a Rolex on your hand. So they don't qualify and kind of, they don't, I don't want to say judge, but there is a sense of pre-qualification, prerequisites of buying from someone, right? Whereas they'll listen to and respect everybody's proposals and take it for whatever works for them. So that's from a cultural perspective. Market dynamics in the Middle East versus Europe is also completely. So the market dynamics here is, this is a very fast-paced moving industry, geography. There's a lot of technologies that have skipped generations. So most people here that you meet in Dubai have never had a telephone, but they all have cell phones. You remember the telephone in our house where,
yes.
People don't know what a telephone, they've never had it. They skipped a generation. They went with no phone to cell phone. So there's a generational gap between technology. So here things move very, very quickly technology-wise, right? And so when you have a society like that, it's still dynamic. They're still accepting to new technology. There's still room for growth. There's potential. There's opportunities everywhere. The market is not mature, right? Whereas in Europe, no, most markets are mature. If you have one product, there's probably 12 products just like it, right? If you have one solution, one service, there's like 50 like it. And so these markets are much more mature. They're much more exposed. And by far, in terms of the adoption to technology, it's sequential. Like, you don't see people start jumping from, well, I'll give you the example of people, with cars. You don't see someone not drive a car and the next day buys a Mercedes. Someone will buy a used Honda Civic, and then the first job, the second job, they'll probably buy a brand new car, but 2 years old. So they won't buy the same year. They won't buy a 2024 model. They'll buy like a 2023 model, brand new. And then they'll buy their, glamour and glory 2025. There's a progression where here you just jump generations, jump complete different. And the last bit, it's all about market fit.
Yes.
There are products that are amazing products, phenomenal technologies, amazing services, but they don't have a market fit. I'll give you an example. If my car runs out of gas in Dubai, I have an app, and someone comes with the truck and fills my car while it's parked in my garage while I'm asleep. Amazing technology, amazing service.
Yeah.
It has a market fit. There's people like me, times thousands, that are lazy, last minute, don't fill up gas, but predominantly like my wife. She doesn't like to go to the gas station. And so this service exists. But then go to Europe, the exact same application, the exact same technology, the exact same cost. Nobody's going to use it because people are like, what? But there's a gas station on my way home I can fill up. And there isn't even someone at the gas station that fills your gas. You have to go down and fill it yourself. So market fit is another massive factor when it comes to how we sell in each of these regions. Because again, you can have an amazing product, but nobody's going to want it because the dynamics of the market is not there. So market fit is probably the third.
Very interesting. Cultural market dynamics and markets fit. Very interesting. And that's a question that you did not know about 12.
I know. You didn't tell me any of these questions.
Crazy. Okay. Well, if we move over, to the future of sales, what do you think are, the emerging trends in sales that you believe will shape the industry in the next, 5 to 10 years in terms of technology, in terms of new trends, in terms of, AI maybe. So what do you think about that?
I have no clue.
Okay. Do you use AI today in your day-to-day job? Do you use any software, any AI?
Look, everybody's on that AI FOMO. I'm very old school. I mean, I gave up my BlackBerry 2 years ago when nobody else had a BlackBerry anymore. And I still call people where people just send messages. And for me, AI is going to be in everything that we do. I mean, if you looked at it, let's say 10 years ago, if you ask someone, do you have a website? there were some people that didn't have a website. If you ask someone 20 years ago, do you have a website? Most people didn't have a website. Now you can ask anybody and everybody has a website, whether in the form of a TikTok channel or a YouTube channel or Instagram. Instagram is kind of like a website. It's about you, whatever. So everybody has it. It's normal. So I believe that AI is going to become normal, and it's going to be in a lot of the day-to-day activity that we use, whether it's in lead generation, prospecting, a lot of automation. It's going to definitely help us shorten the time it takes for us to analyze data, analyze numbers, respond to emails, and you can automate that. And there's a lot of companies today that do that. And, and I've dabbled with a lot of this stuff. Again, I go back and say, it will become normal. Everybody will use it. How much? I actually don't know.
Okay.
I can see doctors using a lot of artificial intelligence from all the data that they have about surgeries and different types of diseases. But again, because there's constants, and in sales, there's nothing constant, so it becomes a lot more difficult to predict and project and forecast and analyze and that's where I think maybe more personalization would help, but people will start knowing what's AI and what's not. But does this email really know who I am, or is this just like some chat GPT prompt that's talking to me? So where will it be 10, 15 years from now? It will be everywhere, and it will be in anything and everything. How much of it are we using it for? I don't know. But the one thing that I do know, that I think every salesperson, because I get asked this question a lot of times, are you afraid to lose your job? AI is taking, I'm like, at the end of the day, people buy from people. So if it's a service or a product, if it's something that's commoditized or not, the ideas, they still have to be supported by human presenting and talking to a human. And if it's something that doesn't require human to human decision making, we can automate it. But I always believe that when it comes to difficult decisions, decisions that really are built around not just the numbers and the analytics, but also the peripherals of the relationship and the future and et cetera, then human to human will always be the top priority.
Yeah, you're right. Nice. One last question before we end with some concluding thoughts. Can you tell us more about GrubTech today? What do you do and what do you sell?
So GrubTech is a fun story. Three friends, old friends of mine, actually one of them ended up investing in a cloud kitchen. And as he sat on the board of this cloud kitchen, he saw that this cloud kitchen was spending way too much money on trying to automate the technology inside of how these orders are accepted. And there was a lot of leakage in terms of revenues because everything was being done manual. So this technology was built so that all these orders that come in from all the different sales channels can be captured digitally without any human interaction or human involvement. So when, let's say, you place an order on Glovo or Just Eat or Talabat here in the Middle East, the order comes out, and instead of it printing on a printer with the order number and the information, I want one shawarma, one Pepsi, one fries, that order goes directly into your point of sale and goes directly into the back of the kitchen where someone can start preparing it. The old way was it comes out, it's printed, someone rips it and starts typing it in, and there's a potential of human error on the re-entry, something that the printer doesn't work, ran out of paper, ran out of, all this stuff like that. But the main idea behind this is that more and more people started ordering online. So again, the market dynamics changed. First, more people were dining in. Now more people want to order online. So we need to have more technology that enabled the volume of orders to be processed faster. So this is where GrubTech came in. But then when GrubTech figured out that it wasn't just a one-way street, but you also had to empower the restaurants to make changes on the channels. So we advanced the technology so that now if you want to change your menu, you don't have to, call Glovo and call Just Eat and Deliveroo. No, you can do it in one place and it automatically syncs. So we're automating the process, but also optimizing the technology to work on our behalf, minimizing human error. Fast forward 4 years, or actually 5 years, our anniversary was just a month ago. We have over 7,000 locations that use us, almost 900 or maybe even more, probably 1,000 brands globally. We're in 24 countries. We have an office in Barcelona. We have an office our HQ is in Dubai. We have an office in Egypt, Saudi, Turkey, and Sri Lanka. Soon to open up an office in London. We work with big brands like Domino's Pizza and Burger King and Subways, and I'm name dropping now, but bigger chains use us because we're helping automate a lot of this order challenges that they face. And our trajectory or our evolution has kind of pushed us into the data. So now we're able to help restaurants analyze their data. What's their top selling items during, specific peak hours at specific times, and how does their prices compare to, their competitor pricing, and, what are the inefficiencies of their waste management. So there's a lot of additional technology that we built around it. But the essence of it is automating as much of the order flow process as possible. From the time someone says, click the order on your application to the point where someone's knocking on your door and says, here's your pizza.
Nice. And so if any restaurant owner today wants actually to have this software implemented, what does he or she need to do?
So again, depending on which region of the world they're in, if they're in the Middle East, they can directly reach out to our Middle East office. And obviously, I don't know if you can share my contacts. I'm more than happy to speak to them personally, but definitely we can support them we're in 23 countries and growing. So as long as they're able to reach us, they can go directly to grubtech.com and request a demo. And we can, within 48 hours, set up a demo and walk them through the technology. And the other way is pretty much just reach out to me, and I'm more than happy. I always like to talk and sell.
Nice, amazing. Thank you, guys. I have two last, concluding questions for you.
Hit me.
The first one, if you are to share any book or podcast or any resource that has greatly impacted you, in your career, what would that be?
There's a lot of great books, and there's a lot of great bullshit out there, right?
True.
and it's really about trying to understand what works for you and what actually helps you. But there is a book that personally affected me, and it was called Predictive Revenue by Aaron Ross. He's one of the early gurus of sales in Salesforce. Okay. And that, I'm not sure if it's too recent, but this is maybe about 7 or 8 years old. Okay. And the second one is actually, I'm trying to find the name of the guy, but this is something that I saw online a while ago. And it was actually a very viral thing where this general is speaking at a commencement speech, and he talks about making your bed. Have you seen that one? This colonel?
Yes, I think I did. The first action during the day will set up, the whole day.
Exactly. Yes. So that, I'm trying to find I'll get you the name, but for anybody that's seen that particular viral video, that general actually had a podcast, not a podcast, sorry, a book written. And this book is phenomenal. And it talks about like the 12 steps of being disciplined, going back to, again, where I feel I succeed and strive the most. And my success is all based upon, me being very disciplined. But that's another great, great book that I would highly recommend people. It's a very short read, this big. That is, you know what? I have a phone in front of me it's called Making Your Bed, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it's an amazing book that I highly recommend people to read and read 2-3 times. Yeah. Making Your Bed. And the name of the general, it's, let me just here. And
so
his name.
The name of the book is Making Your Bed?
Yeah. Admiral William M.
Okay.
And this is what it looks like, the book. Very, very small book, Making Your Bed. I love it.
Perfect. Amazing. One last question for you. What's one tip our listeners can implement today if they want to improve their sales game, or if, they are going to an interview, just entering, the sales world? What's one tip you can give these junior people today?
There isn't a single tip. And there isn't a series of tips to give to anybody. But the one thing to keep in mind is everybody's selling to everyone. So don't think that you're a salesperson because you're the guy picking up the phone and trying to convince or persuade someone to buy from you. The guy right across from you is actually trying to persuade you that he doesn't want to buy from you. And he's selling you on why he doesn't need you. So you're not the only salesperson in the room. When you're talking to someone, it's either you sell him on why he should buy, or he sells you on why he won't. So it's not a one-way thing. You're not alone. The guy right across from you is doing the exact same thing, but in the opposite direction. He's selling you and you're selling him.
Nice.
If you can keep that in mind, I think, like going back to the interview, I mean, you sit in an interview, the person interviewing you is trying to sell you on their company. And you're trying to sell them on why they should hire you. And he's trying to sell you on why he doesn't want to hire you. But you're also trying to sell him that you don't want this job because you're looking at other interviews. It's the same thing. And this is the again, it's the art where people talk about the art, right? But yeah, so you're not the only salesperson on that call, or you're not the only salesperson in that room.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ghassan, for your time. And it's been, wonderful, many tips. So thanks a lot. And thank you all for listening and for tuning in, and stay inspired and keep evolving.